In this video, I will be going over how to use latitude and longitude to locate places on our Earth. So, as usual, if you need to pause or rewind this video at any point, please go ahead and do that. Also, please watch the video entirely, and afterwards, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to go over them. You don't need to take notes. I'm not going to be checking those, but I would recommend having maybe a Word document open or a piece of paper and a pencil in case you need to jot things down to help you remember. But of course, this video will always be available to you, so you can review it as many times as you'd like. Okay, so here's a basic map. Hopefully you're at least a little bit familiar with it. We went over continents. You can see the oceans. It's not a super detailed map, but it has some important things going on here that we've gone over before, but you need to make sure that you understand these things. I'm going to be kind of reviewing a few things. So hopefully you remember that this line is called the equator. You can see that it's got a label on it, equator. And hopefully you remember that this line is called the prime meridian. Now these are going to be very, very important. I'm hoping that you also remember that lines that run this way, east to west, you could think left to right, like the equator. Here, those are called latitude lines. And these are called longitude lines. Again, this is a review from a couple weeks ago. But you're going to need to know these things to move on to the next step in this lesson. Okay, this is something I may have gone over briefly, but this also is going to be very important. The equator, as you can see, it's an imaginary line. It's not a real line. You can't go and see the equator. It's just created by map makers, basically to help people find their way around the Earth. Here's the equator. Anything north of the equator is located in what we call the northern hemisphere. Again, this is a review, but it's going to be really, really important for the next step. Anything south of the equator is located in the southern hemisphere. Similarly, anything that is west of the prime meridian is located in the western hemisphere, and anything east of the prime meridian is in the eastern hemisphere. Put them all together, and here you go. So any location on Earth, every location on Earth, is going to be located in either the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, and also the western hemisphere and the eastern hemisphere, or the eastern hemisphere rather. So you can see that North America here is located in the northern hemisphere, but also in the western hemisphere. Make sure you understand this. If you need to draw a little graphic, a little picture on a piece of paper and take notes on it, that's wonderful. Go ahead. Pause the video and you can go ahead and do this. But don't spend too much time on it because we need to move on. Okay, again, just to review, lines of latitude are horizontal lines that stretch from east to west across the globe. Again, these are not real lines. They're just made by map makers. The longest and main line of latitude is called the equator. Here it is. The equator is represented as 0 degrees latitude. This is pronounced as 0 degrees. It's not temperature. It has to do with where things are located on the Earth. And you can see here, and here it says 0 degrees. So in the future, if you ever hear the phrase 0 degrees latitude, that is talking about the equator. You may want to jot that down. Lines of longitude are vertical lines that stretch from the North Pole to the South Pole. The main line of longitude is called the prime meridian. The prime meridian is represented as 0 degrees longitude, right here. To find places on Earth, we use what are called coordinates. The first coordinate is always on a latitude line, either north or south of the equator. The second coordinate is always on a longitude line, either east or west of the prime meridian. So, let's take an example. Let's say the coordinates we're looking at are 15 degrees north by 30 degrees east. That is written like this: 15 degrees north by 30 degrees east. So when we look at the map, we'll do the following steps. You can see I've got a map pulled up right here. This is from the previous part in the PowerPoint. We'll do the following steps. We're looking for 15 degrees north by 30 degrees east. First thing we're going to do is find the equator. Here it is. Next thing we're going to do, since the first coordinate has an N after it, we'll start looking north. Okay, you can see 15 degrees north. And remember, the first coordinate is always on a latitude line. And since it's 15 degrees north, that means it's north of the equator. So we're going to look right here, 15 degrees. This line right here, you can see, goes all the way across 15 degrees. That line is 15 degrees north because it is north of the equator. Here you go. Since the first number is 15, we'll keep going north until we find the latitude line that says 15 degrees. Now we're going to find the prime meridian right here. Since the first coordinate has an E after it, we'll start looking east, which is this way. Since the second number is 30, right here, 30 degrees east, we're going to keep going east until we find the longitude line that says 30, which is right here. You can see there's a 30. It goes all the way down. That's the 30 degrees longitude line, and that is east because it's east of the prime meridian. Now we find where those two lines cross each other. So we've got our 30 degrees longitude, which is right here, and we've got our 15 degrees north. So we're going to go over, and this right here is where they intersect. That point on the Earth is 15 degrees north, 30 degrees east. You can see it's in Africa, right there. That is the point that we call 15 degrees north, 30 degrees east. Congratulations! You've used coordinates to find a place on the Earth's surface.